Hello and welcome to Trojan Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Taylor. Today we'll be talking about the Rubicon, the literary journal here at Troy University. And my guest today is the editor-in-chief, Caleb Humpries. Caleb, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And as I mentioned, we're talking about the Rubicon. A lot of people may not be aware of what the Rubicon is. Tell us a little bit about what is the Rubicon.
Well, the Rubicon is a 20-page literary journal for Troy students, and it's run by Troy students. And any Troy student can have the opportunity to submit something to it for publication.
And now it is a literary journal, so you're looking for the written word, correct?
That's very correct. We look for poetry, short stories, literary essays, plays, basically anything that you can write down, you can submit.
Now, what do you see more of? Obviously, there's a lot of different types of writing out there. As you mentioned, there are a few selections there. What do you see more of coming from Troy students?
Well, we see a lot of short stories, not so much plays or literary essays. And that's short stories.
Short stories. What about poetry? Obviously, you mentioned poetry, but you say more short stories. But what about poetry? Obviously, I know there's a lot of students out there. I see poetry nights and things like that. So are there students out there that are putting out some poetry?
Yes. We see some poetry, not as much as the short stories, but the poetry that we do see is very good.
And now, this obviously is intended for students, correct? So is it schoolwork, or is it stuff that they've done on their spare time, or do you have, what are the guidelines? What can they submit?
Well, they can submit schoolwork or stuff that they do for fun. We don't really have a preference, but it's, obviously whatever's the best that they want to submit.
And now, with that kind of stuff, what do you think you see a lot of? Can you tell when something's a class assignment, or when somebody does something fun?
Well, we can tell when it's a class assignment. It's very structured. It's not very spontaneous. Some things are just copycat assignments. So, and then some people will submit stuff and they'll say, for such and such's class, and then we really know.
You really know that when they say what the assignment is on the top of the page. Now, you're looking for submissions now, correct? So we'll talk about how they can submit in a second, but let's talk about in the past what the response for submitters has been in the past. How many submissions have you had in the past?
Well, last year, the first semester, we had about 20 submissions, and it wasn't enough to fully fill up the Rubicon, so we had to do some creative.
To kind of space it out a little bit?
Yeah, to space it out. But the semester after that, the spring semester, we had about 70 submissions. So we had more than enough, and it was the best issue yet.
Now, with 70 submissions, and you mentioned it's 30 pages. As a matter of fact, you've got a copy of it here.
I do.
So if folks can see, it's not a book. It's more of a kind of pamphlet size type thing. But you still 30 pages. So when someone sees one of these laying around, this is a copy of the Rubicon. This is what it's going to look like when you see it when it comes out later this year, right?
That's correct.
Now, with that, you say there's only about 30 pages in it. So with 75 submissions, I'm doing the math in my head real quick, I'm thinking that 75 submissions aren't making it on 30 pages of a book.
No. I think this one has about 15, 16, 17 submissions in it. So obviously we can't accept everything that comes in, even though we'd like to. So there is some
editorial cutting out there. So now, what's the process in which you make the selection? Because obviously, if there's a lot of work coming in and you've got to find that best of the best, how do you figure out which ones you want to put in there?
Well, the editorial staff and myself, the staff consisting of 9 people, we'll get together and we read the submissions, and then we kind of vote on which ones we like and which ones we didn't like so much.
And then those ones that make it in there end up being the cream of the crop, the best ones you see.
That's right. The ones that we unanimously vote yes are the cream of the crop, and that's what makes it into the issue. And
so it's kind of a badge of honor for these writers, because they're the ones that are selected and actually get printed. I would think that's got to be a pretty good thing for a budding writer out there to say, hey, listen, I've been published.
That's right. It's a very big accomplishment, because you can put it on your resume, you can put it on your grad school application saying that you publish a short story or a poem in a literary journal. It looks very good.
Now, if anyone is interested in submitting, how can they find out information about submitting to the Rubicon?
Well, you can go to our website, which is spectrum.troy.edu/Rubicon, or you can email litjournal@troy.edu for more information.
And then on the website, there's information about how to submit and whatnot?
So has all the details.
All right, and when is the deadline for submission?
The deadline for submission this semester is October 12th.
Okay.
And that way we can get everything ready and get the issues out before break.
For the break. Yeah. So that's about the time that folks should expect to start seeing these float around?
Sometime after Thanksgiving and before finals.
All right. Well, good luck with this year's Rubicon, and hopefully get some good submissions.
All right,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
joining me today.